Okay, and you can begin, Gail.
So good afternoon. I am Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, and I have the distinct honor of being the moderator for today's Census Town Hall, which is co-sponsored by my office as well as the U.S. Census Bureau and the New York Public Library, two phenomenal organizations. And before I introduce tremendously talented panelists representing diverse sectors of our society, from government, academia, grassroots organizations, and nonprofits, I just want to give a brief summary of where we stand in terms of achieving a complete and accurate count. As of yesterday, the national self-response rate was 61.6%. And closer to home in New York State and New York City, self-response rates are lagging the nation, with 57% for the state and 52.5% for New York City. New York City is lagging the nation by almost 10% in self-response rate. We have to do better in closing the gap in the weeks before enumerators begin field operations, and I know you'll hear more about that for that August date. When we look at borough response rates, we see Staten Island leading New York City with 57.9% self-response rate, and I'm very competitive, and I love the borough president, Jimmy Otto of Staten Island, but I want to beat him. Manhattan is at 54.1%. I don't like being second, and Jimmy Otto knows that. Closely followed by the Bronx at 53.9%, then Queens at 52.4%, and Brooklyn at 49.7%. About a year ago this month, I gave an address at the NYU McSilver Institute predicting some enumeration challenges unique to Manhattan. And I want to thank the McSilver Institute because they put a lot of time into the census issue. I didn't predict COVID, nobody did. But a year ago, I did talk about, in addition to the challenges related to the historically undercounted city, the uniquely Manhattan challenge of counting billionaire row and millionaires too. Interestingly, sometimes that's our biggest challenge. I also spoke about the construction of entire new neighborhoods, like Hudson Yards, many to be counted for the first time as such, and certainly downtown Manhattan has incredibly diverse and incredibly new members of that community. I know anecdotally it's gone from 20,000 to 70,000 downtown. You have probably heard the media refer to the challenge I will address as Manhattan's luxury ghost towers phenomenon. That's the Deputy Borough President Aldrin Bonilla brilliant statement. According to the Census Bureau's own data, zeroing in on a 14-block tract of Midtown East between 49th Street and 56th Street, around 60% of the residents in these high-end homes were seasonally vacant between 2013 and 2017. That trend is corroborated by a New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development study, which found in Manhattan, the number of pied-à-terres apartments went from 55,000 in 2014 to 75,000 in 2017. I knew then that the decennial 2020 census, during this time period that we're in now, it was important to reach these residents because while they may be away some seasons, they live in Manhattan for a majority of the year. We planned then to work with doormen and the wonderful 32BJ, building management and real estate broker associations. We had them all lined up to help reach these seasonal residents to make sure they are counted. Then of course, COVID-19 hit. And it dramatically exacerbated this problem as well as many others, with far more residents from these tracts with the means to relocate and ride out COVID in vacation or second homes. And you know all the locations they have gone to, from the Hamptons, upstate, Con Ed, Cape Cod, and the like. Many of these residents decided to hunker down elsewhere at the worst possible time for census purposes. Literally the same week invitations to fill out the census online were mailed. For example, a current look at today's census self-response rate for the same Midtown East area I reference is the lowest in New York City. Several tracks yet to surpass 30% response is what you're finding in these areas I just mentioned. So we're working on strategies to improve the situation. We're targeting those census tracts as well as others. Those are not the only ones that are low. We're reminding residents that who have relocated or who have not filled out the census, and we're telling them that it's not too late and we need them counted in their residence. Whether they have relocated or whether they're still there, they need to fill out. I have one friend, she moved temporarily, and I found out that she filled out her census in her temporary location. I had a fit. And to her credit, because all of her friends emailed her and blasted her, so she refilled it out with the New York City address. But she's only one person. So this we need to focus on, and that's the work that we've been doing. But historically, I think we're the only elected official to lead a delegation of diverse New York City stakeholders to Providence, Rhode Island. And I want to thank, you'll hear soon from the wonderful representatives of the census who joined us. We went to this site because this is the only site that was a dry run, and to bring back lessons learned in Providence, Rhode Island. We want to thank the mayor who provided lunch and his staff and all the folks who joined us. And one of the persons who joined us was Carlina Rivera, who's a council member. She's now co-chair of the City Council's Census Committee. And I think she got the idea from riding on the bus and going to Providence. And also the phenomenal Jolie Golden, whom I think everyone who encounters will find has been a real asset to the 2020 census, and has taken on a very prominent role at the US Census Bureau. So creating also and convening, we did a diverse Manhattan Complete Count Committee, 150 member organizations, some of whom have representative here today. We also, in doing so, in very early times, we had a Manhattan Counts grant program. We funded 12 highly effective and innovative organizations who are focused on traditionally undercounted communities. I also called, badgered, and made sure that 100% of my staff in the Manhattan Borough President's Office filled out their census forms. And we have launched a similar initiative to make sure all 600 community board members have submitted their form. Alden Bonilla has sent them a wonderful opportunity to make sure that they have filled out their form. It was just about 10 days ago, and 70% have reported filling it out, and we're going to get that last 30% in the very near future. And just like all of us on the call, we have participated in hundreds of job fairs and forums and town halls and create-a-thons and virtual meetings and working with the arts organizations like Lincoln Center. The list is endless, and people on this call have participated in so many different ways. So without further ado, even more importantly, I want to hear from our distinguished panelists. They have been busy promoting the census, and they are busy making sure that everyone is counted. So what I just want to mention before I go further is that the map that I love, and I think you'll hear about it, is the one that says hard to count maps, and it comes from CUNY. The Census Bureau will talk about the work that they're doing, but that particular map has, I think, in my opinion, the easiest to read in terms of New York. So without further ado, I want to introduce somebody who has standing like none other. So I want to thank Jeff Beller, who is the New York Regional Director of the US Census Department. And to his credit, he has made himself available literally from one bottom of the East Coast to the top of East Coast, and he is a total pleasure to work with. Jeff, please join us, and thank you so much for your participation today and in the past and in the future. All yours.
Great. Thank you so much, President Brewer. I greatly appreciate that introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I can do that. All right. Can everyone see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So again, thank you, President Brewer. I can't thank you enough for your leadership. Aldrin as well. You guys have been fantastic. And everyone on this call is a rock star. I can't tell you how much energy you give to us at the Bureau. I mean, at a time when everyone would have understood, if you just would have stepped back and hit the pause button, all of you continued. You've re-engineered the way you do things. And I'll tell you, this is a day to celebrate. And I know we have work left to do. But if you would have told me 6 months ago that Manhattan would be 12% below where it was in 2010, and we would have removed the total ability to bring people together in person, I wouldn't have believed it. This is a success story because of the work all of you have done over the past 1.5 to 2 years in creating that foundation. All of you are trusted voices. And we can't thank you enough for your continuing efforts. This is a success story. We definitely have room to grow, and we will. We're going to get there. Now as restrictions are being lifted and we can start doing some really cool things, we're looking forward to continuing to work with you. So I thank you for all of that. All right. So let me go over briefly just some operational updates. Due to COVID-19, of course, we had to shift things we were doing. Self-response. We have until the end of October. Every household in New York City and Manhattan has the ability to self-respond all the way up until October 31st. And I'll talk about the ways of a household can self-respond here shortly. I want to stress though, regardless of when you fill it out, whether you fill it out July 1st or October 31st, we're asking you who lived at that address as of April 1st, or who usually lived or stayed at that address as of April 1st, 2020. It's not the day you're filling out the form. It's April 1st, 2020. So the more people we can get to respond as quickly as possible, typically the higher the quality of the data, okay? So self-response has been extended all the way through October. Non-response follow-up. If you want to use a date in your communities to motivate your community members to self-respond, use the date August 11th. That's the date we're going to start knocking on doors of every household that has yet to respond to the census. We're going to hire over 500,000 people nationwide. We're selecting over 30,000 people in New York City alone. We'll be training them in late July, and they'll start knocking on doors in August. Tell your community members, if they don't want someone knocking on their door, the best thing they can do is self-respond. And the last update I want to mention is our service-based enumeration. This is where we visit mobile food vans, soup kitchens, and homeless shelters. Just recently, it was decided the dates for that will be September 22nd through the 24th. We'll be reaching out to these service-based enumeration facilities soon, seeing if they can provide us with an administrative list rather than us coming down there and enumerating, which we will do as well. It's their decision, but certainly due to COVID-19, if people would prefer to give us an administrative list of those that they serve during that time period, we'd be more than happy to accept it. That will also include a homeless count. One of the nights, the 22nd through the 24th, that specific night hasn't been decided yet. We have a little flexibility based upon weather or other issues, but we will be going out at roughly 12:01 a.m. and conducting a homeless count at all the possible sites that we've gathered over from all of you over the last year and a half. So let me briefly talk about responding to the census. It's not too late. I know there's a myth out there that, hey, April 1st has passed, I cannot respond anymore. That's going to be further from the truth. Everyone can still self-respond to the census. And when we talk about self-response, it's going online, calling in the information over the phone, or if you still have your paper questionnaire, filling it out and mailing it back in. So let me talk briefly about going online. You can go to 2020census.gov and just click on the respond button. A green respond button in the upper right-hand corner takes you right into the website where you can go ahead and enter your information. We publicly say go to 2020census.gov because there's a lot of support there. There's language support. Online, you can fill out the form, of course, in English and 12 non-English languages, but we also have videos in 59 languages and an American Sign Language where you can see how to fill out the form in that native language. Watch a video of someone filling it out while there's captions or they're speaking in that particular language. Also, if you have your unique census ID, which would have been sent to you in a letter, as well as when we sent the paper questionnaire, there was a letter that included. That census ID is a unique identifier that just basically is your street address. And rather than having you enter your street address, we have you enter this 12-digit ID. That just lets us know once we release the data, we're releasing the data for your household in the correct census geography, whether that's a tract or a county or a city or a state. And it's extremely important. But if you don't have that ID, you can still fill it out. Right below where you would enter your census ID, there's a link. So, if you do not have a census ID, click here. You just click on that link and then go ahead and key in your address information. And then you just continue with the rest of the census form. You can also respond by phone, and this slide includes all the toll-free telephone numbers we have for English and the 12 non-English languages. 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern time for English, Spanish, as well as TDD. And then the non-English hours, as you can see, are 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern time. This has not been a very popular option. A lot of people have been preferring to go online, which is great, but this is an option for your community if maybe they don't want to go online, they're not comfortable going online. This is definitely an option. And then finally, responding by mail. All questionnaires have been mailed out. We are not doing any additional mailings, and you don't have the ability to request a paper form be mailed to you. It was done basically at 2 different times of the period, and all those questionnaires have been sent out. You can see what the questionnaire looks like, sample copies of the envelope and the letter and all that at the link they're provided. Important to note, we will never ask for your social security number. We'll never ask for bank or credit card numbers, anything on behalf of a political party, and money or donations, things we will never ask for. Again, we have language support on our website, total of 59 language guides that you could print on paper. Basically, the directions in that native language, how to fill out a paper form. It also talks about the importance and how easy it is. Last thing I want to mention, a couple things that we're working on right now. We have coming up a surge week, the week of July 26th through August 2nd. This is going to be a week in which we're going to ingest additional funds into advertising, both paid advertising. We're going to work on earned media. We're going to do social media advertising, print advertising, radio advertising, specifically focused on New York City. And as we get additional details, which we hope to have by the end of this week, we want to share it with you so that you as a partner, you may want to do something yourself to kind of supplement some things that we're doing. We're going to be doing this in a total of 45 languages. So if there is a vendor that maybe wasn't part of the original buys back last year when our contractor awarded the contract to the individual outlets, these outlets still have the ability to apply to be a partner. So we will get that specific information out to all of you. We ask that you please share it with every media vendor that's a trusted voice in your community to give them the opportunity to be a part of this buy. The other thing that'll be happening towards the end of July are postcards will be mailed to every non-responding household that received mail via the Postal Service. So roughly 95% of the country received their invitation via the Postal Service. Any of those households that have yet to respond will receive a postcard. This is the 6th mailing that was never planned for, that has just been announced. So that'll be coming out towards the end of July during our surge week, and of course, right before we start knocking on doors August 11th. The last thing I want to mention is in the middle on this slide, you see suspect fraud. It's important to note if you have any concerns, please take a look at our website. We have social media myths out there that we're busting. For instance, a few months ago, the census, if you didn't fill out your census, you wouldn't get a stimulus check. That was a rumor going around on social media. Well, maybe it got some people to fill it out. It was inaccurate. And we put that out there right away. So this is a great place to see exactly what things look like, address any myths out there, or you can call our toll-free telephone number for employee verification as we start to knock on doors. Or if you have any questions, let us do the research for you. We are here to support you. So I'll start or finish where I kind of started. Again, President Brewer, I can't thank you enough for your leadership, all that you've done in supporting the census with everything else going on. You are a true leader and we greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Jeff. That is always extraordinary, and nobody can thank you enough for just being who you are. Our next speaker is Kathleen Daniel, who's the field director of New York City Census. And not only is she that, she's also very cool, and she has some great ideas about how we can get more people to participate. And she shared them earlier with me, and I know that she'll share them with you. And I think they're phenomenal. So Kathleen Daniel, go ahead.
Thank you, BP Brewer. Hi, everybody. So glad that on a very, very warm Wednesday afternoon that you could join us to talk about one of the most important civil rights and social justice activities that you can engage in right now. That's doing the census. Yes, this is about making sure that every New Yorker is counted and counted equally because we all count as one. This is about making sure that New York City gets its fair share of federal resources, and that's to the tune of $675 billion a year in budget money that is doled out to cities and states based on population. And if you've ever heard me say anything, you've heard me say that the census is nothing but your RSVP to what could be, should be the greatest experience in the world, like a party, living in America and living right here in New York City in money-making Manhattan. But sometimes the parties kind of sucks because we didn't RSVP, because our host wasn't prepared for us to make sure that we had all the resources that we need. So please fill in the RSVP. You are already been invited. You're already at the party, and you can improve it right where you are by filling in the census. Go to my2020census.gov or pick up the phone 844-330-2020. And there are many other numbers. They can do this in a number of languages, but please get it done today. If you haven't done it yet, you can do it. Mute yourself, get it done. It's okay, we'll wait, we'll still be here. And it takes 10 minutes to do 10 questions that's going to impact the next 10 years of our lives. And yes, those 10 questions in that 10 minutes or less will pave the pathway to recovery for New York City for the next generation. So that said, what is New York City doing? So this is the first time ever New York City is engaged in promoting the census. We've never done it. This is history in the making. And what a time to make history when things are happening that haven't happened for over a century. What a time to make history when things are happening that have been overdue for more than a century, right? So you can get involved. New York City has a four-pronged approach. One, we have a multimedia advertising campaign. And you might have seen some of the digital ads, those of us that are back on the subways and buses, right? But we've put some digital ads out in your local papers. We are texting them and putting them into our WhatsApp and our WeChats and our Vipers. We're putting them all over social media, and you can grab them and you can go to nyc.gov/census, join the Cool Kids Club, grab one of these. They're in multiple languages, and post. Pretend it's the great dinner that you just made, right? Or the cocktail that you're hoping to have, and post. Help us get the word out. We also have a great number of PSAs that are out. I don't know if you've seen Cardi B, Mi Gente Presente, or Seth Meyers, or Lin-Manuel Miranda, or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and there's many, many, many more. There are more coming, and if you have access to a celebrity, send us an email. You can find us at nyc.gov/census, and you can send us information. Help us. We need more people to sound the alarm because New York City needs you to do the census and get others to do it too. What else are we doing? So we have a field program, which I'm going to talk to you about getting involved in, which is my favorite because I'm the field director. Yes, I'm biased. We have a grant program to the tune of $16 million, over 150 organizations that have been granted money to as valid, trusted messengers speaking multiple languages who are doing outreach and in-reach to the people that they already serve, because you are going to trust and believe, not me, who you've never met, but the people that are already helping you out with housing applications, food stamp applications, and other services in the languages that you speak in the neighborhoods where you live, work, and play. And yes, parks are open now. You can play. So what else are we doing? There's so much more. New York City also has our partnership program. We are partnered with the libraries and have worked with the libraries to the tune of over $1.4 million so that they can serve as ambassadors for us. And they're going to tell you a lot more about what they're doing. I will not steal their thunder. Now let's talk about the field program, my favorite. Like I said, we have been texting, and we've been texting out the count with you. So thank you, Manhattanites, for helping us out. To date, we have sent 5,000,000 864,984 text messages. And we've reached 1.4 million people. Actually, almost 1.5 million people have responded to our text messages and clicked on the link and done the census. We've also been calling out the count. And every week, every day of the week, we are calling into the different boroughs. So you can go to nyc.gov/census and sign up. And I'm going to give you a link that you can personally sign up right here as part of this town hall. We have called 814,000 New Yorkers, and we've reached 152,302 of them and spoke to them directly about doing the census. But wait, we can get further, and we need your help in order to do it. So how do you get involved, Kathleen, right? In the chat, I'm going to post a link. It's a Google Doc, fill it in. Tell us what you're willing to do with us, because there's a list, a wonderful buffet, because everybody needs choices, right? And then we are going to call you right back and email you only about what you said you're interested in doing and tell you how to get involved. So you can help us call out the count. On the days that we text, you can help us text out the count. You can help us with friends and family. You can reach out to the people in your phone whose phone you are in and tell them to do the census, because they're going to listen to you. So while you're doing your wellness checks of all your neighbors, your friends, your family, the people you like, the people you don't like, the people you work with, you can even text your ex. No judgment. Tell them to do the census and get counted. Everybody counts. You can also ask us to print out for you as many as you'd like, a Dear Neighbor letter that you can put in your house of worship, in your building, in your laundromat. You can actually walk up and down the neighborhood with your dog and give them out to people and say, Dear Neighbor, the census is important and here's why, and sign on the bottom line and get them to do the census. You can help us hang up posters in your community in some targeted neighborhood where we need the information out and we need it in multiple languages. We'll send you the posters. We'll drop them in the mail. We'll even send you PPE if you need that to take a stroll, which is healthy. Go walk around the neighborhood, go to your local bodega, because you know where they have the best Cafe Bustelo, and hang up a poster. They'll say yes. Tell them Kathleen said they should do it. They'll totally say yes. Try it. You'll like it. So I'm going to put this in the link. You're going to sign up, and for 1 hour, you can get a lot done and help us to get the census done. And if you sign up, we're going to let you know about all the great things going on, including what we just in this room agreed that we're going to launch, the great big fat Manhattan caravan, so that we can go into these communities, we can drive around the protests, and we can make some sexy noise about how amazing the census is. Because if you really want to know one of the great things that you can do right now in this season of change, in this pandemic, from the safety of your own home, it's helping us to get the word out about the census. So get it done, everyone, and we need your help to do it. We need to show the world how New York City behaves in a pandemic.
Like I said, Kathleen, you are awesome. So thank you very much. Oh my goodness. I see why everybody fills out the census when you talk to them. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Jay Brandon, who is Civic Engagement and Community Partnerships Manager at the Great New York Public Library. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for your sponsorship. All yours, all yours.
Thank you, Manhattan Borough President Brewer. I am happy to be here on behalf of the New York Public Library. I'm thankful for the Borough President's Office, the U.S. Census Bureau, New York City Census, our other community partners, CUNY Corps, CPC, Chinese Planning Council, and Union Settlement. I'm happy that you are all here with us today, and I'm going to take a few short moments to provide a brief update on where the library is at in this moment, as we've been hit by COVID, but also had to respond as well to it. Can everyone see the screen?
It says loading. Yep, there we go.
Okay. So, activity since closure, what have we done? Like many other organizations, we, again, were impacted and we had to shift. So what this looked like for us was incorporating census messaging into our digital programming, social media, and our remote outreach. We pushed census-related videos out. The PSAs that Kathleen has talked about, we have them up on our census page. We've shared them with our networks. We've shared them amongst our staff. We've asked them to continue sharing that information and getting the word out. We've adapted, as I said, to the remote approach, and we've increased our social media presence when it comes to census. We're now tweeting out census tweets on a daily basis. We've started to incorporate more census communications or more census messaging into our emails. We're looking at incorporating window posters into our branch locations, and other targeted yet contactless forms of information dissemination is where we're at in this moment. We're continuing to find creative ways to bring census to our communities, to our various branches throughout our 3 service areas, as well as in Manhattan. For our staff, have developed census wellness check-ins where we are going to be retraining our staff as we start to move closer to our reopening and engaging a bit more with the public. We have a voter suppression, the census and the impacts forum with Jeff Weiss coming up on the 30th of this month that we are all invited to attend as well. So where are we now? I'd like to give just a brief update on our overall general areas, but then also talk about the Manhattan community as it's particular to our current efforts. So right now, as the borough president first mentioned, Staten Island to date is at 58%, Manhattan is at 54%, and the Bronx at 54%. For us, our target communities vary by our service areas, but particularly we've been focusing on Central Harlem. As noted as I have at the bottom, we've shifted our outreach approach targeting specific low self-response census tracts. And in the Harlem area particularly, over the next week, we will be outreaching to more businesses, restaurants, supermarkets, laundromats, faith institutions, community-based organizations, inundating that particular census tract with a ton of census information from a trusted community partner in the hopes that we can catalyze self-response in that census tract area. So as Kathleen has mentioned, there are a number of volunteer opportunities through NYC Census, as well as through the New York Public Library. And this is one way that you could help us also increase the census count in the Harlem neighborhood. How have things changed? Hard to count communities are still hard to count. This is an obvious fact that we know is present. Much of our efforts are digital, virtual, or remote, and what that means is that there's a lack of ability to connect and engage in person with some of our most vulnerable communities, our seniors, our immigrants, communities with historical challenges to government or accessing general resources. The coronavirus has brought to the surface a number of disparities. It's pushed marginalized communities further, making our efforts to reach them even more difficult. And we recognize that right now, census engagement is less personal, but it's more challenging, but it's more critical to our way forward. Kathleen talked about everyone counting and our resources being allocated based on our counts, and it's our way forward. Getting those most marginalized communities, those marginalized individuals to take part in the census is critical now more than ever as we look towards a way forward for New York. So just to really quickly just show what we use as we're doing our work and we're looking at how do we plan our efforts. And it's important that you have this information, as the library is a source and a resource for the community for information. We wanted to bring it directly to you so that you saw where we're getting this information. The borough president mentioned earlier the CUNY hard to count map. The Census Bureau also has a hard to count map. And here we've just outlined the city, and you can see the various areas of self-response. The darker blues represents higher self-response, and the areas of orange or yellow represent slow self-response. And those are the areas that we want to make sure that we're continuously targeting over the next 4 months of the self-response period. Looking beyond digital communications, this is where we need your help. This is where everyone can get involved. It's what we're doing now, and it's the way forward to making sure that we achieve a complete count. as I mentioned, the libraries are going to start reopening. You'll be able to, you'll hear more about this over the coming weeks. The plan will be publicly announced in the coming weeks. The safety of the staff and patrons is paramount in the planning and execution of our phased reopening. So here are some updates that I can currently provide. At this current time, once we do announce our reopening, and as we start to reopen our branches, 8 of them will initially open throughout our service areas. Our service delivery will be curbside, and it will be grab and go services only. Patrons will be able to make reservations through our website and pick it up curbside at the branch. During the first part of the phase 1, there will be no in-person programming taking place at our branches. How do we keep going though? We're asking folks to add a plug about the census in their email signature. It's simple. You update your signature, you add the my2020census.gov link to your signature, and it's set. And it's there for the next 4 months as you're emailing folks and talking to them every day through ordinary business. You're communicating about the census. Make a post on social media. There's tons of graphics out there for us to use that touch on a number of different demographics, in a number of different languages. Consider making a census social media post. Link to the census in your Instagram or your Twitter bio. This again is an easy, quick action that one can take that can talk about the census over the next 4 months, and that will be there for people to see. Share census outreach materials. There's tons of it. Ask us. We can help connect you to those materials, whether it be materials from the U.S. Census Bureau or from NYC Census. Tell your friends, your networks, your families. We're connecting with them. We're trying to stay in touch during this time period as much as possible and as best as possible. Have some of those conversations being about why we count, why the census is important, how those benefits and those resources will help and impact our way forward. Check out volunteer opportunities. As mentioned, Kathleen has talked about it. I've talked about the various opportunities out there. We will be dropping links to upcoming events and upcoming volunteer actions. Consider connecting with a community partner and being involved in some of those efforts. And before I turn it over, I want to segue. Nope, that's not it. As mentioned, the library is a hub of resource and information for all in the community. As we thought about putting this panel together, we wanted to make sure that we connected the dots, that we brought members into the conversation and gave them information and access to resources. And one of those resources is the New York Public Library. The New York Public Library is home to millions of articles and books, and is a wealth of information. And one of the things that you can find here are poems about the Black experience and Black liberation. And in this moment of social action and social unrest and social injustice, a great way to bring that together, we thought, was with this poem, Madam and the Census Man by Langston Hughes. The census man, the day he came round, wanted my name to put it down. I said Johnson, Alberta K, but he hated to write the K that way. He said, what does the K stand for? I said K and nothing more. He said, I'm gonna put it, K-A-Y. I said, if you do, you lie. My mother christened me Alberta K. You leave my name just that way. He said, Mrs. with a snort, just a K. Makes your name too short. I said, I don't give a damn. Leave me and my name just like I am. Furthermore, rub out that Mrs. too. I'll have you know I'm madam to you. So in this moment, I encourage you all to complete your census. Know that we all count. For more resources on Black liberation, Black history, visit the New York Public Library.org.
Jay, that was extraordinary. Thank you very much. They're very, very extraordinary.
Thank you.
So our next speaker there are 3 amazing panelists, although all of us are going to be here to answer questions. And the first is Lisa Sutherland, who is the COO of Union Settlement. Now, I love all settlement houses, but I have to say Union is very, very high. And all the work that you and your organization have done during the COVID has been extraordinary. So go right ahead, Lisa.
Thank you so much, President Brewer. So thank you so much, everyone. On behalf of Union Settlement, I'm so excited to be here to talk about this fantastic topic of the census. I want to thank also the NYC Census. You guys have been an extraordinary partner for us and a huge support as a CBO in this COVID-19, trying to make sure that we are committed to what we said we were going to do, which is to get the word out, as well as the United States Census 2020 for all of your support and guidance throughout this process. We truly appreciate it. So I just want to take a few moments just to talk about what Union Settlement has been doing as a community-based organization in the heart of East Harlem. We have 26 locations across East Harlem from 98th Street all the way up to the 120s. And we are the East Harlem lead for the NYC Census program. Obviously, before COVID, we were guns blazing. We went to all the meetings. We were so excited. We had this huge outreach plan as to what we were going to do to get our community, East Harlem, jazzed about the census. And then what happened? COVID-19. So very quickly, my team, my amazing, and I have to shout out to my amazing census team who has gone above and beyond to make sure that we answer the call to what Census 2020 is for our community. We very quickly had to reconverge, figure out how we were going to take the original plan of doing outreach traditionally and move it remote and virtually. And so over the past couple of months, we've done everything from phone banking, texting, we've done virtual workshops and presentations. We've now included the census in our one-on-one calls and our telephone reassurance calls to our seniors. We have broken it down pretty much in two phases. Phase one was really taking all of the outreach that my organization is doing across all of our programs and infusing the census into all of the work that we did. The other part of it was where we are now, which is phase two, and we're starting to do a lot more of the texting and the phone calls and the phone banking, e-blasts. We've used our social media platforms. Shout out again to the NYC Census for all of the signage and social media posts and things that you've given us to really try to get the word out. I think one of the most difficult things that has happened for my organization, but really across New York, is many of our census team members were very much affected by COVID. Many of them may have had it themselves and or had family members. And so we really had to figure out how we keep the morale going throughout this difficult time, specifically for the outreach team who was on the ground making those calls and making sure that we got the word out. And one of the unique things that Union Settlement did was we did a special training for our outreach team to really talk to them, because many of them became therapists as they were making calls to talk about the census. It was many family members who were saying, I just lost a loved one, or I need to bury my loved one, you know, where do I go for that information? So obviously Union Settlement being in the heart of East Harlem and very much a staple in that community, we were there for them in that regard, but we also wanted to make sure that our staff was okay. So we did conduct a variety of different trainings for our outreach team to make sure that they were equipped to be able to not only get the word out about the census, but also to handle some of those difficult conversations that they were having. In addition to that, as we move forward, we're moving into the summer months, and yes, New York City is opening up slowly but surely. So we have a variety of different things that we're going to be doing over the course of the summer, including with our amazing CUNY interns. Shout out to CUNY for all of their, our 3 interns are just absolutely fantastic, and they have been with our outreach team throughout it all, moving remotely. They've been with us. We've had them infused in all of the flyer making that we've done, and really had sort of the youth voice involved in our Census 2020 work. And so now we're moving into the summer months, and we're going to be doing things like we're doing a senior coffee hour where we're going to be virtually talking to our seniors and talking to them about the census. We're also going to be doing some census TikToking with some of our youth and having some contests and challenges on TikTok to try to get the census out and about with our youth community. We are committed to this. You know, we use the NYC Census verbiage of 10, 10, 10. You know, it takes 10 minutes, it's 10 questions, and it's going to affect the next 10 years of our East Harlem community's lives. We're doing a lot of education and re-education in all the languages that we can that makes our East Harlem community so beautiful. And so we're just out and about, and we are committed to this until the end. We want our numbers to be as high. We want to make history-making numbers. And so we are just super thankful for this opportunity to be able to talk today on this panel. And we will continue to do this until the end, until the census closes.
Lisa, thank you very much. I could see Kathleen smiling the whole time, so that's a good thing. The two of you could rock the whole city to get this damn census done. Everybody on this panel is phenomenal. Amy Torres is Director of Policy and Advocacy at the Chinese Planning Council. Amy, it's all yours, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Manhattan Borough President Brewer, and thank you everyone for joining today's call. It's really great to be joined alongside some really awesome panelists, as well as I'm seeing some awesome folks in the audience and in the chat box as well. Again, my name is Amy Torres, pronouns they and she, with CPC, the Chinese American Planning Council. And CPC, you know, we really have been, earlier, Borough President, when you gave your remarks about Rhode Island, you know, that trip was very important to us. And we've really been involved in census outreach and education since the addition of the now removed citizenship question, which at this point feels like a lifetime ago. But for us, you know, we really looked at that moment as an opportunity to really build political and civic education with the low-income immigrant and Asian American communities that CPC serves. And in our fight to remove that question and our fight to invest more funds in a local and state outreach effort, we really found that people were very excited and motivated by the idea that you can spend 10 minutes of your time filling out this form and really direct what the next 10 years of your future looks like. We knew there were a lot of new changes. We've been so grateful for the partnership that we've had with Jeff and the regional office to really overcome some of those new changes and updates and make sure that the community is aware of what's at stake and how to overcome some of the new updates in the census. And I think even despite all of us forecasting what was ahead, none of us could have expected what happened with the COVID-19 pandemic. And none of us could have also expected that we would find ourselves, despite the year being 2020, in a real national conversation around identity, race, visibility, access, and political representation. And as challenging as the last few months have been, I think we at CPC have been really motivated and galvanized by the response of our community members, particularly our young people, in getting out the count for themselves and their own future, but also on behalf of their families. CPC is the nation's largest social services organization for Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, but we're rooted solely here in New York City. And we reach over 60,000 members each year. And many of the young people that come to our programs are themselves first generation, 1.5 generation, second generation kids who end up being primary translators for their immigrant parents and are sometimes one of the only English speakers in a limited English proficient family. So being able to access critical updates on things like, you know, the closures that happened as part of COVID-19, or now that we're in the phase of reopening, you know, what the different phases of reopening are. It's really been our young people that have been leading the charge and digesting and sharing this information back into the community. So when it came to our census outreach, we figured we would follow the exact same tactic. We would really rely on our young people to guide how they wanted to be engaged, especially because so many of our young people were not only dealing with challenges with their families, but also challenges with schooling, transitioning to a remote environment, dealing with isolation. And so we really wanted them to guide the conversation about how they wanted to do census work and how they really wanted to fight for the future ahead. So through some of our youth after school programs, as well as our service learning initiative, we had young people do some research and self-investigation about the census, how it's used, and then we helped guide them through creating toolkits, flyers, and outreach materials that CPC has now been using in some of the essential services that we still provide. So while many of our services, like those after-school programs, have gone remote, we are still providing some essential in-person services, including residential assistance, meal provision, grocery delivery, and we're using the same materials that young people have created to, attach a flyer to every grocery bag that goes out, or using some of the messages that youth have created to include in an email blast to our members, because we know that if this message is resonating with young people and if it's resonating in the conversations that they're having with their families, it's also going to resonate with the other members of the public that CPC serves. And so I'd love to share, if it's possible to do share screen, just a glimpse at some of the flyers that youth recently created in the last couple weeks. I'm not sure if that's possible. I'm gonna try, and if I can't do it, we're gonna make sure that we post it on CPC's social so that we have a double win of sharing it with the public and driving some of y'all to our social. So let me see if I can share real quick. All right. Share screen. Awesome. So some of our young people created multilingual flyers in Spanish, English, and Chinese. And so these are materials that we have been printing and then putting out or attaching digitally in any outreach that we have with the public as well. And then the young people also created a short, this is one of the flyer versions in Spanish. Oh, how do I stop sharing screen? There we go. All right, everyone can see the nightmare of all my tabs. But we've also had them create PowerPoint presentations, short video clips, and really have them steer the conversation about what motivates them to get counted and what motivates them to get their communities counted as well. I think Kathleen had some great points about, there's so much political, small p political activity happening right now. It doesn't have to be partisan to talk about representation. It doesn't have to be partisan to talk about visibility or your fair share of federal funding or your fair share of any of the city or state dollars that are determined using census data. And so it's really been a promising moment. It's been an exciting one in a time that has otherwise seemed fairly grim and dark, but watching our young people be this excited about the future ahead has certainly been illuminating for us, and we're excited to continue the work with partners like the library, the Borough President's Office, the city, and our fellow settlement house partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was fabulous. Our next speaker is Miriam Hernandez, who is the Census 2020 ambassador at the Research Foundation, which is part of my favorite organization called the City University of New York, the jewel of our city, which they just need more money if anybody's listening. And I also say, not only are you great, Miriam Hernandez, but I'm a big fan of Stephen Romanowski, who has the MAP, and he is Mr. MAP, Mr. GIS. So go ahead, and thank you so much for representing CUNY.
No, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, so again, my name is Miriam. I'm a Census Corps, a proud Census Corps student. From what I can hear, a lot of the CBOs have had great experiences with the interns. And I myself am interning with, I'm on the Manhattan field team, but we've done just so much work, and I can see from the maps that we've been doing great. While other organizations and other, most of New York was worrying and closing down, working how they were going to do all this virtual work from their homes. The CUNY, as Lisa said, the CUNY Census Corps students came in with guns blazing, and we've been doing just so much action here from our own home. So I'd just like to share a few things before we move on. But some of the things that we've been participating in is canvassing, from phone banking to text banking, day of actions. We've had multiple CUNY students in the Brooklyn field team, the Bronx field team, and Queens field team who have led projects like the Brooklyn Town Hall, which is the virtual Bengali Town Hall, to reach out to that community. We've also done Spanish town halls, and we've created so much content for diverse communities, which is something that I'm very happy about, because the CUNY institution is one of the most is a highly diverse institution. So I think that that's definitely been a great power, a tool that we've used. We've been able to reach out to so many people, different communities, because we are all diverse. So myself, I'm a Spanish speaker, but you know, other students, they speak Mandarin, they speak Polish, they speak Bengali, you know, so from all these languages, we've been able to connect with different communities, which has definitely helped us, you know, get in contact with the hard to count communities that we've still been trying to reach. So I think that in that sense, and hearing from your experiences with the Census Core students, we've been proudly working forward and pushing through the pandemic, even though we're still working right now through remote activities. We will be moving, the CUNY Census Core team will be moving or transitioning as New York reopens to in-person activities. So hopefully you'll see more of us in the streets.
Thank you very much, Miriam. So we have time for questions, but I want to know if you want to ask each other questions, feel free, because this is a very sort of informal. But I do want to say, some of you touched on it. We are now, to a large extent, not 100% back to work, but people are out one way or the other. So I want to know from a reopening perspective, because we have gone from, you know, being a very vibrant city to COVID, and unfortunately losing 22,000 people and all the families that go with it. I never forget that, because I lost a lot of friends. And then now reopening the restaurants, the barbershops, etc. Not the gyms yet. If I get one more call about wanting to open the gym, my God. But go out and run in the park, please, leave me alone. But the issue is, what should we be doing in terms of this reopening? And are there some ideas? Obviously, I was thinking, looking at, you know, and I went to some protests and I didn't have census forms or material with me, so I'm just as guilty. But we're, you know, what should we be doing? Obviously, the seniors are still at home. So the coffee shop idea, doing that virtually, yes. I know that there is a push to have census forms at the many DOE food hubs, which is incredibly important. So I know, just anybody, if you want to start, Jeff, what should we be doing about this reopening? Maybe there are some ideas from other parts of the country, and how should we be doing something different, if at all? Jeff, why don't you start?
Yeah, I'll share one idea and then turn over to the other panelists. So we have a mobile questionnaire assistance program. We have over 700 staff that all have tablets that can help community members fill out the census. Most recently, we've been going to food distribution sites. We've been invited to some church services. We've been at hospitals. But we were at one hospital last week. I think we had over 73 families or people representing families fill out a census. So this is an opportunity. We haven't been given the green light to fully open up our MQA program, but what we're doing right now are 2 or 3, maybe 4 staff members can come to a food distribution site. It's based on our partners. We're not creating events. We're not allowed to create events right now, but we can certainly support you in an event. When you talked earlier about, you know, handing out flyers or you know, canvassing neighborhoods, our staff can help with that, both providing materials and going door to door, dropping things off. So we are here to support you in whatever way we can.
Okay, who else wants to jump in? Kathleen, go right ahead.
Thank you. My children's dream, I was muted. So we, like the U.S. Census Bureau, are coming. You invite us, we're coming. So invite us to your building lobby. We'll sit, we'll be there. We have over 200 CUNY Census Core students that are doing an amazing job. Snaps up for them. And we have iPads, we have Chromebooks, we speak foreign languages. I speak French, English, Spanish, and Creole. So invite us, we're coming, and we will come with electronics, and we will assist people with taking the census. We're not federal census takers, but we can assist you so that you can self-respond. Additionally, we are all caught in this strange universe called Zoom. Never leave a Zoom meeting without posting my2020census.gov. It's that easy. Make sure that you get involved. A lot of you in this pandemic have taught your parents and your grandparents how to text and how to do email. We can teach them how to phone bank, and they don't have to leave the house, right? One less thing to worry about. So go to nyc.gov NYPL.org/census or email me. I put my email address in the chat. I also put a link for you to get involved, and that's nyc.gov/census-MH for Money Making Manhattan. Get involved, sign up somebody, and you're all involved in a million different meetings. Donate a meeting. Don't take the summer hiatus. Census this summer. That's what you do. And get on the phone and help us get the word out.
Thank you, Kathleen. And Jay, I know you talked about Harlem. I couldn't agree with you more, although they're, they have a higher number sometimes than the East Side. And Washington Heights has always done well. But should we be hitting what is the library doing? But we should be hitting the barbershops. That's what we should be. So I was just wondering what your suggestions, and I mean, there's so many questions, but to me, people are out and we have to go out. Go ahead.
I can share on our efforts and list 3 quick things I think everyone can do to be doing more about the census. So right now, the Census Navigator team, we have, taken this opportunity and our shift to outreach is to do a lot more assessment, to utilize the hard to count maps to really see where we can be most effective. So we mentioned Harlem, but the Lower East Side also is one of our target areas that we will be paying more attention to over the next 4 months, because we know that the self-response rate there can use or needs to increase as well. So we are looking to expand our reach in terms of connecting with community partners, which was the impetus for this forum today, was to bring community partners to the conversation and share the work that they're doing. And so those 3 actions that I can specifically say from a New York Public Library perspective that we would invite everyone to take part in is 1, is sign up for our upcoming voter suppression, the Census and Impacts Forum that's coming up on June 30th at 2 p.m. I think that will be a great opportunity to hear more about what the census is and how it impacts our daily life in terms of redistricting efforts and in terms of resource allocation. So that's 1. The second is visit us at NYPL.org census/census 2020 and learn more about the various activities that we have coming up. Hear more about our reopening plans and learn how census will be incorporated into that as we go along. And then the third action is what we've been encouraging our staff, where we've been encouraging all of our networks, is to be talking to one other person, at least one other person about the census. Kathleen mentioned, as we're in these Zoom conversations, never leave without dropping the My 2020 Census link. I've gone a step further and don't leave any sort of engagement that you're having nowadays without mentioning the census. If it's a Instagram live that you happen to hop into, mention the census. If you're on a Zoom call, mention the census. Google chat, census. Netflix watch parties, mention the census. Wherever you're at, just be constantly dropping a note and nod to the census. You'll be astonished on how many people will respond, and if it's only one person, that's one more person that we have now started to talk to about the census, and that can then go and share it with someone else. So those are 3 actions. I encourage everyone to continue to list information and contact information or events and activities that they're having in the chat, and let's really keep this conversation going.
All right. Before I call on Lisa, I just want to mention that tomorrow night, my understanding is every precinct council in the city of New York is having a meeting in person, 100%. So I don't know if between the US and New York Census, if you're aware of that, but that would be a place to get the New York Police Department, because it's open to everybody. It's a chat to their credit, and to have somebody at the police department literally have that discussion as part of the overall whatever's going to be discussed. I don't know if you know that, but there's going to be a lot of people who are community leaders at this event. So when I say event, I mean thousands and thousands of them, and I hope they go well, because we need to have these conversations. So just FYI. And the other thing is, I know you do this, but I'm a big believer of the Cure the Violence folks. There's one in East Harlem and one in Harlem, at least in Manhattan. And they are incredible messengers in the community in terms of making sure that people have masks, socially distance, and have any other issues that come their way. So we have to get to folks like that. So Lisa, what do you suggest? I mean, there's so many questions to ask, but what do you suggest in terms of this reopening situation?
So I would say that, Union Settlement, obviously, like all community-based organizations, are in the throes right now of trying to see and sort of understand what our reopening is going to look like. But I would say that at every turn, as we prepare for our planning, we are including census in whatever it is that we're doing. So whether that's a training, an all-staff meeting for our staff that we do on a monthly basis, all of our Zoom meetings, we're talking about the census. I would also say that we've also done a lot of discussions with our staff around protesting and doing peaceful protesting. And anytime they are going out and participating in any of the rallies or protests that are going on in light of Black Lives Matter, we're giving them census flyers and giving them sort of like a little bag to take with them that has census flyers in them, and they can pass them out as they're doing their peaceful protests. So at every turn, regardless of ultimately what our global plan is going to look like for our reopening, we are making sure that we are including census materials as much as we can in whatever it is that we're doing. I would also say, in light of what President Brewer just said in terms of the precinct meetings, Union Settlement is actually the host of the 23rd precinct meeting that's happening on tomorrow. So we would welcome to have any of NYC Census's teams out there to talk about the census. And Kathleen, I can touch base with you after that as well. But this is not a sprint. This is a marathon all the way to the end. And so this is now it's a great thing that NYC is getting ready to start gradually reopening. And as the phases continue to happen, Union Settlement is definitely committed to making sure that we are getting the word out there, because East Harlem is such a vulnerable and challenged community, not only in light of COVID-19, not only in light of Black Lives Matter, but also in light of the census. This is the population in East Harlem that, we have so many diverse languages and people that English isn't their first language. And so being able to get out there and first of all, educate them and have them understand it's not just about filling out the 10 questions, but it's about what those 10 questions are going to mean for the next 10 years or more of their life. We know that we are in a very interesting political climate right now. And so some of these families they don't know. They don't really grasp or understand what the census is. And so we're going to continue to be doing, not only getting them to fill out the paperwork, but to understand what those 10 questions mean. And so we have a variety of activities going on at Union Settlement. I'll put our website in the chat, and you can feel free to reach out to me. We love to have volunteers. We have a lot of events. We have a big general store that we're getting ready to open for our most challenged individuals in East Harlem, where we're going to be giving out a lot of food and supplies and other donations. We will have the census information there as well. And so I just encourage you to, whatever you do, fill out your census and just get involved. There's so many things going on in the world right now between COVID-19, of course, Black Lives Matter, and now the NYC Census. And so as a community member, all of us on this call right now, I just encourage everyone, just get involved. I think that's what the communities need most.
All right. Thank you very much. And I know, for instance, tomorrow is going to have, DOT is going to have the list of about 3,200 restaurants that have applied for outdoor dining. I don't mind going around with some of Jeff's people while they're eating their dinner and bothering them and making them fill out. That's a great idea. I don't have to go in the building, right? And I can bother them as they're eating their hamburgers or their vegans or their Chinese food. So that's something. So that list is available tomorrow. Okay. And believe me, we all want people to visit the restaurants in East Harlem or Chinatown or wherever. Absolutely. But I also want them to fill out the friggin' census. So we can go with the tablet, Jeff, I don't know, something to think about. And then the second listing, and there are about 1,600 in Manhattan on that list. I have everything memorized. And then there's the street closing list, right? That's another list that's available. So maybe we could target those streets where families are out and literally be standing by the barricades and state, have you filled out your census? I'm just saying where the lists are available. And of course, the final thing is, supposedly the playgrounds really are open and, it's a challenge in terms of the cleaning, but they're trying. Mm-hmm. So how do we deal with the playgrounds? Those are the ones that are also listed as open. So some suggestions, but in Chinatown, I know that, the ice cream parlor, the Chinatown ice, oh my goodness, that line is all the way around the corner. But in general, where are some of the ways where you think reopening can be an opportunity for census building in Chinatown, or other suggestions that you might have in terms of the reopen? I was just walking around with Wellington and the bid, you know, and there's still a lot of plywood. It's still challenging, but how would you suggest in terms of meeting that community? Amy, all yours.
Yeah, so I think one thing that CPC has kept top of mind is that Chinatown, Asian American New Yorkers, we were some of the first areas to be hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, because even before infections started in New York, before they were detected, we knew that there was a lot of customer bias against visiting Chinatown restaurants. We were hearing even during Lunar New Year that people were very reticent to visit these food establishments, local businesses that are Asian American owned or Asian American serving. And so we know that our communities were some of the first hit, and we don't want them to also be the last to recover. And I think many communities of color, the health disparities, the economic impacts have been particularly pronounced for Black New Yorkers, Latinx New Yorkers, immigrant New Yorkers. And it's really important for us that census remains a singular message to make sure that our communities are uplifted in the decade ahead. We know that we're already going to be sort of on a back foot in recovery because of the ways that these disparities have hit our communities, and, you know, because of the same systemic issues, but in very different ways, each community has been affected. And I think to Lisa's point earlier, you know, when we think about why folks haven't.
Anyway, so my other question for Miriam is, in terms of students, what do you think are some of the challenges that students have in terms of just filling out this particular census form? Because a lot of the chat discussion is, why aren't people filling out the form? And I'm just wondering if students have that question also. Can you hear me? I don't know what to do. I don't know. Miriam, can you hear me? No? I don't know what happened here.
I can hear you, Borough President, and I see Miriam is muted. Miriam, can you hear us?
Can you have to, unmute it. I just want to know why you think students are or are not filling out the form, because a lot of the chat discussion is why are some of the reasons that people are not filling out the form?
So well, I think one of the misconceptions, the greatest misconceptions was that, you know, you have to be a U.S. citizen in order to fill this out. And like I mentioned before, CUNY is a very highly diverse institution. So a lot of the students are from families where English is not their first language. They come from different countries, and so they are from mixed status families as well. So I think that that's a fear that a lot of them have. So they don't go home and share this with their friends. They don't talk about this. It's not something that we, you know, that goes around that young people consider cool, or like just something to consider at all. So I think that that was one of the main reasons, that they, either by fear or just not wanting to do it, they just didn't consider it something important. But it is very relevant and pertinent to the movement that we have going on. And through the pandemic as well, we've seen that, you know, we don't have a lot of resources or funds available right now. So we're wondering why that is. And it's because 10 years ago, not many of us filled out the census. That's why we don't have these resources available at hand. But again, that was one of the reasons why, you know, a lot of these students weren't filling this out. And a lot of them just leave them up to their parents. They say, well, this is not our job to do this. Our parents can do this. And then when I've been doing phone banking, you know, I hear from the parents and that they're leaving this to their children to do all the paperwork. And so it's just, I guess it's a lack of communication, but thankfully through phone banking, text banking, and all the virtual meetings, as well as digital content that we've been able to spread, all of these misconceptions, from sharing social security number or financial income that is required, you know, all of these myths have been dispelled. And so through that, we've been able to continue reaching folks and telling them to complete the census.
All right. So I think we have to wrap up soon, but I just want to ask you, Jeff. So when you say you obviously have a phenomenal staff who have tablets, 4 to 5 are able to, given the COVID situation, be out into the community. Will that change, or what is the status? We're all concerned about health, so I understand that there has to be some discussion about that.
All right, yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, right now, until we get the clearance from our headquarters, which we expect sometime next week, we're doing it in small teams, and we're making sure those people are comfortable doing it. And so far, we've had plenty of people who we're providing PPE. We're hopeful that as we kind of unleash this, we can do some things such as telethons, you know, people calling in to talk about or ask questions, and then we direct them right to one of our representatives who takes their information right then and there. A member of Manhattan, not someone who's away at a call center, but someone right here, one of their neighbors, taking their information. So those are some of the things we really hope to do, hopefully in the next week or two.
Okay. And Jay, when the library is open, will you be able, when you're doing the grab and go, will you able to do census right then and there, or is it just giving out material?
We're currently in the process of assessing. We're still thoroughly trying to think through our reopening. We're looking at phase 1 currently. As I mentioned, the safety of staff and patrons is paramount. So we want to ensure that we can do this as socially distant as possible while, you know, trying to connect the gaps or bridge the gap to with the library and the community. And what that will look like, hopefully, is some sort of ability to include census messaging in the delivery of our services once we reopen.
Okay. So anyway, I don't know if there are any closing comments. Kathleen, I know you have something to say. I want to be on that caravan. I want to go to all of the local census tracts that haven't been as responsive, and I sure as hell want to beat Staten Island, that's for sure. So let's all work together on that. And I don't know if there are any questions or any other suggestions that people want. I do think that the places that people are gathering in phase 2 and phase 3 and phase 4, which is what we're focused on. I'm on the governor's committee in terms of opening and trying to figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. And of course, any protests that are still hopefully continuing. We are doing Black Lives Matter painting starting July 1st in Harlem and on Foley Square. And so that will be another place we will have material. But if there is an opportunity to actually have somebody there with a laptop or any kind of an iPad to actually do it, that would be even better, because I think people are a little, you know, you get home, you have the paper, but you don't always do it. If somebody's doing it, they're right with you, that helps. So those BLMs hopefully will be another location. I don't know if there's anything else people wants to add. This has been, for me, extremely helpful, and I hope for our audience, and I hope for each one of you. And I want to thank the panel, but also the US Census and the New York Census, and certainly the public library. We would be nowhere without our libraries, and we were counting. This is another COVID casualty, because the libraries were really going to be the place where we send people, where the amazing librarians have the knowledge and the patience to work with all of us to fill out the census. So I think, considering everything, you've done a great job. So I want to thank Jeff.
Thank you.
Jeff Baylor, who was the awesome New York Regional Director of the US Census, Kathleen Daniel, who's the field director from the NYC Census, and we're going to participate in her caravan. Yeah. I want to thank Jay Brandon, who is with the outreach director of the libraries, the New York Public Library, Lisa Sutherland, who was the COO of Union Settlement, Amy Torres with Chinese Planning Council, Director of Policy, and a wonderful student, Miriam Hernandez, Census Ambassador at the Research Foundation at CUNY. Thank you all very, very much. And we have a roadmap as to what we need to do in order to make this happen. Thank you so much. And we will be sharing all of this. I'm sure you'll hear from the wonderful Luisa Lopez in terms of the material that will be shared. Thanks a lot. And we'll answer all the questions on the chat. I know things like, where are the precinct council meetings tomorrow night? The answer, in your precinct. So you have to call the precinct and find out where they are, because there's hundreds of them, and I can't possibly give you all the addresses, but we will try in our newsletter. We have a daily newsletter. If you don't already have it, just go to our Manhattan BP NYC Gov/sign-up and you'll get a copy of it. Thanks a lot, everybody. You really rock, as they say. Thank you.